So I was sent this video by Vicky 1999 where she goes through 6 documentaries and watches 12 hours worth of footage of said documentaries that are intended to turn people vegan.
Because some of those movies show animal slaughter in really graphic ways, I decided not to show you clips from them, but I will show you non-graphic images. Together they're about 12 hours of footage, and I figured I could make a video having a look at those.
In there are some real shockers like Earthlings and Dominion, which go through standard practice and things that happen to animals in order to get various animal products.
Lately I was on the official Vicky Discord server, and someone had posted a movie called Dominion, telling the other users to watch it if they eat meat. I eat meat, so of course I had a look, and I quickly learned that it's a movie that tries to get people to think about their meat consumption. Am I still a meat eater after so much vegan content? Well, you will know by the end of the video, so stay tuned.
Hopefully you go vegan as a result of these documentaries, otherwise that would be kind of shocking. Especially as you use a graphic on your... videos while you're talking, which says, "We stand against oppression." So it'd be kind of weird to see the oppression happening and then pay for said oppression.
Because some of those movies show animal slaughter in really graphic ways, I decided not to show you clips from them, but I will show you non-graphic images.
If you can't show people it, then I'm wondering why it would be comfortable, for people to actually consume these products. If it's so graphic what's happening, there needs to be some really strong justification for why it's happening. Spoiler alert, by the way, I can't hold it in any longer. She's actually not vegan after watching all of these documentaries, and maybe we can kind of figure out why.
The first one, called Earthlings, is mostly based on showing the horrible conditions farm animals live in nowadays. It starts off explaining how humans are not the only ones on Earth. We share the planet with animals who are also Earthlings, hence the title. The movie has lots of emphasis on the fact that animals and humans should be equal, and if you disagree, you're a speciesist who discriminates based on species. There is also a Holocaust comparison in the intro. Then it starts off explaining things about pets. They explain puppy mills, in which dogs are locked in 1x1 meter cages for their entire lives to make more cute baby dogs to be sold to people like you and me. These dogs show a lot of signs of mental illness, like pacing in circles in the cages. They also talk about stray animals who are so abandoned that the most humane thing to do is to euthanize them, because the average person would rather buy a puppy than an old rescue dog. Stray dogs in general are mistreated, and there is footage of a stray being thrown into a dumpster truck and being crushed to death. And now you realize just how graphic this video may be. Last chance to opt out, because we're continuing with how cows are treated. When cows are born, they are dehorned, which means their horns are removed with garden shears. The horns have nerves and blood vessels, so not only does the blood spray everywhere, the animal also cries out in extreme pain. The young cows are separated by gender. The females are kept to make milk and the males are killed. We will return to that process later. Milk cows are often crammed together in feedlots, where they have barely any space and are fed reinforced grain to increase their milk production.
So we're getting the picture here that Vicky has absorbed a lot of what has to happen to these animals. She's seeing the facts, and she seems very disgusted by them. This factor alone makes it kind of mind-blowing for me that she doesn't end up going vegan. But they're not all, morality related. Some of the documentaries are about health and environment, and as we see, she comes to learn a lot about that as well.
Then the documentary says, if we have to hunt our own food, we'd all be vegetarians. And after looking at the slaughterhouses, I may agree.
So she may agree that if she had to hunt for her food, she probably wouldn't eat the flesh of animals. Oh look, here's my dinner.
Would your mum be happy if I ate you? Oh, I'm gonna eat you. I really am.
But yeah, if she had to hunt, or maybe kill her own flesh, she probably wouldn't do it. So that's interesting as well.
They also talk about individual fishing. I never thought about it, but fishing is pretty brutal. You lure a hungry animal near you, you put a hook through its face, and then continue to pull it out of the place where it can breathe. It's actually a death sport if you think about it this way.
Based. Yeah. Incredibly brutal.
It also shows Canadians clubbing seals, which I just think it's disgusting. Yes, they say it's part of the culture, but when your culture leads you to harm innocent beings, then fuck it. If it's your culture to kill seals for their skin, then it's my culture to shoot people who club seals on sight.
See, based. So she's not someone who's going to use culture as a justification for why we ought, oppress other groups. So I'm glad that's not a thing, because a lot of people cling on to that and think, oh, well, culture over, the lives and autonomy of sentient beings, and they don't realise the logical conclusions of that argument.
In total, this documentary tries to convince people using shock and gore, and frankly, for me it did not work. I still ate schnitzel the day after watching it. This may be because my mom showed me a documentary like this back when I was 10, so I may be desensitized.
I do understand, trying to explain why you personally maybe aren't moved by these things as much as you think you maybe should be, with like desensitization. But the problem with that is, desensitized or not, no matter how you feel about these things that occur, it is still happening. And you've acknowledged during these documentaries and your commentary on them that what is happening is horrific. So regardless of your feelings towards it, do you think it's justified or not? And if it's not justified, then why continue partaking in it?
The documentary ends saying, you can't be an environmentalist and eat animal products. This one is a wild ride. It is right that animal agriculture on the scale we have is destroying the environment, and that it's a huge waste of food and water. All important true points. And it is right that we need to reduce meat consumption, to maybe only eat meat once or twice a week. But its insistence on the existence of some huge conspiracy is just silly and makes the entire documentary seem like an unhinged conspiracy rant.
So despite her critique, she seems to agree that animal agriculture is unsustainable. She even says that, okay, well, we at the very least need to definitely reduce our consumption. She seems like the idea of like getting rid of it though, kind of maybe too much. I don't know though, on the kind of moral aspect alone, just a little bit of oppression. I'm pretty sure Vicky, in the rest of her stances, doesn't think that just a little bit of oppression would be fine. Like, can someone be homophobic towards me on a Monday? And that's just kind of okay, and I can say, well, they're not being oppressive to me the rest of the week, so it's not all that bad. But now I'll move on to Dominion, because this is an animal rights-based channel, and, though there is value in these other documentaries, I'm more focused on these personally. I would like to see what she says about, whether or not it's right or wrong to, stab animals.
It is also probably the most traumatic one of these documentaries. Just hearing animals scream out of pain for so long takes a toll.
Yeah, see, you have a problem with the kind of screaming and it touches you, but even with the desensitization, the screaming is still happening. And, if you are paying into these industries, you are directly paying for it to happen, and that's essentially kind of like voting for it, or you're signing off on it being okay to do.
There are often people who say that being vegan is unhealthy. I found no such evidence. It's entirely possible to be vegan and healthy.
Vicky even understands that you can be healthy while being vegan, so it's not the health holding her back.
If you want to go vegan after hearing all these horrible things, I entirely understand, and if you won't change a thing, I get it too. I'm not here to force you into a conclusion.
Upon seeing those flags in the image, what if people were oppressive to any of these groups? As I said, what if someone started using homophobic slurs against me, or violated my rights on the grounds of me being a lesbian? Like, would you be so charitable to the idea of like understanding why they wouldn't want to change?
Now comes the exciting question. Am I vegan now? Is Vicky vegan after watching 12 hours of movies made to get people to drop meat? No. Vegan is too much. Pretty much everything I eat has milk powder in it.
A lot of what I used to eat had milk powder in it, but alternatives are available, and is it really worth everything that you've just seen just because you want to eat specific things with milk powder in it? It's not adding up at all. The response that you had to these things and what you seem to think is right and wrong just doesn't align with the act of going, no, it's just too much. Doesn't make any sense whatsoever. We're talking about oppression. We're talking about and you literally make like seemingly being against oppression part of your identity. So what are we using to justify it?
But I will definitely cut down on the meat to once or twice a week. For me, It was not the suffering animals that made me change, it was the health documentaries that got me. And after learning so much, I kind of lost my appetite for meat.
Lost your appetite for meat? Well, partially because you still consume some of it. But what about the rest of the things that happen in the documentaries? It's not just, their flesh that's being used. It's their skin for clothing. Animal testing you went through in great detail. The milk, you went through in detail as well what happens to procure that product. I'm not sure how you could lose your appetite for kind of one small segment of all the horrific things we do to animals.
Whether I will keep eating meat in low quantities or whether I'll turn vegetarian is a question I can't answer yet. But despite my thick-headedness, these movies touched me. In conclusion, check out my sponsor.
And that's it. She can't actually answer whether or not she'll go vegan. She references her being thick-headed. And I think, maybe she's right. I don't know anything about her. But, perhaps she's feeling quite stubborn. It is a social norm to consume the bodies and secretions of animals. It is a social norm to, justify their, rights violations, or not even really justify them, just kind of let them happen. I think you just have to bite the bullet and accept that if you are somebody who is actually against oppression, knowing what you know, you can't just be somebody who participates in it. Otherwise, are you really against oppression? All the things that we see today that we're, fighting against, things that are very, still prevalent, but not as prevalent as they used to be because of, so much work of activists who have been trying to get rights of specific groups of people. You can almost see if you are someone who knows something is wrong, but you still partake in it because everyone else does, or some reason like that. Is it so hard to imagine that maybe you would have been someone who partook in something else that you think is just horrific now? I did email Vicky upon seeing this because I did see this on stream. And I'd love to have a discussion with her about this and see if we can talk through maybe what's holding her back and maybe offer some help. Maybe it's the kind of concept of making that change that's a bit daunting. But once you do it, it's done. I'm 8 years vegan and I'm a very lazy person. Okay, and I've made it work. If I could do it, I'm sure a lot of people can with pretty much ease. Hopefully she replies, I don't know, maybe she will, and if we can have a discussion, a live discussion or a video discussion, that would be awesome, but I don't know, we'll see, hey. Until then, it's good that she watched this, and it's good that she gave some kind of good opinions and overview of what specifically was happening. It's good that she wasn't trying to make excuses and justifications for this behavior, but she's still going to participate in it. Which, fundamentally, if we really question it, it does make sense. Especially if you're going to be someone who's actively against oppression, then how can we make a case for this? Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I've been Vegan Gaze, providing you with that vegan content so you don't go deficient. I do hope you well, and until next time, salads. I'll see you soon.